Marvel could learn a thing or two from The Incredibles at Pixar. I feel like if you're like me and like, pretty much I wouldn't say majority, but a good chunk of Marvel fans, you're pretty sick of superhero movies in general and pretty sick of how Marvel writes them. I myself can definitely say that I'm part of that group of people who are kind of tired of how Marvel has been treating superhero movies, at least over the last 5 years, because they just kind of been getting worse and worse and worse, and I don't think it's gonna slow down anytime soon, unfortunately. One studio that I think Marvel could learn a lot from is one that I'm pretty sure that they're familiar with, and that's Pixar. Pixar released The Incredibles in 2004, and it is still to this day my favorite superhero movie. Yes, above any movie Marvel has ever released. It was the first superhero movie that I remember watching, and it is my favorite and best superhero movie. Don't at me, we can fight about it. Now, I'm not saying that, The Incredibles is the most perfect movie in the world, but I really think that Marvel could learn a thing or two about how, I feel like Marvel could relearn how to write superhero movies just by watching the first Incredibles movie alone. And when I mean learn how to rewrite movies, I mean rewrite everything. The characters, the story, how the characters interact with each other, everything up under the sun that you can think about. The Incredibles does what I want Marvel to do in each of the superhero movies, but there's one scene in particular that I do want to focus on that I really feel like Marvel could learn about how to make it feel like, the things that the characters do and what the characters are going through have weight to them. And by far the best scene in the movie is when Mr. Incredible finds out what Syndrome has actually been doing over the past, couple of decades since the last time that he saw him, especially once he finds out that, his fan is actually Syndrome. And it's the scene where Mr. Incredible finds out what happened to all the other superheroes and why they suddenly went missing, quote, quote. And in this scene, we learn that Syndrome has been gathering all the superheroes from basically around the world to this island to use to basically be target practice for his robot and to basically make it so that it has no weaknesses, it has no vulnerabilities, and can destroy every superhero because he felt like he was wronged by Mr. Incredible. And also so that he could be the only superhero in the world so that he can get all the fame and all the glory. Now, this scene takes the already, I'll say out of 10, 6.5 Incredibles movie. Well, I'll say 8.5 and puts it to a 10 to me. This makes The Incredibles so good because it adds so much weight and so much detail, and probably even too much detail for a Pixar movie, but it's fucking great. And while The Incredibles was already, more of a bleak, depiction of, superheroes, especially superhero movies at the time, as the superhero movies that we had around the time were more of even if they were on more of, the darker side, they had more of a cheery kind of, fun look to them and fun, vibe to them. But The Incredibles, at least in my opinion, is the bleakest depiction of, superheroes, and this scene only amplifies that by 10. And this scene also gives The Incredibles, lore basically, because around the time that, we, Bob and Helen, have kids and are married and everything, Syndrome has essentially been using these heroes for target practice, used Mr. Incredible for target practice, and is also going to try to do the same thing for Frozone and Elastigirl so that he could be the last one standing. Now, I'm not saying that Marvel never does this, but as of recently, they never reveal something of this stature that gives, the movie that gives, whatever superhero movie it is, so much weight to it that it didn't have before, that it makes the movie better than it already was. The last time that I can really account Marvel doing this that really stood out to me was obviously Infinity War and Endgame. That was the last time that I feel like anything in a Marvel universe actually fucking mattered and actually had, some stakes and some weight to it. Because everything else after that has just been filler. It feels like for this entire time, we've been in a filler arc of Marvel, and it just doesn't work. You can't do filler arcs for superhero movies. And people don't even like fillers in anime, so I don't know how we got to a point of where Marvel was okay with just releasing so many filler movies to at this point to where I don't even want any more superhero movies to be released at all. We've gotten to a point where so many people are burnt out of these movies, but Marvel just keeps releasing them. And I get it, they're trying to do the whole phase 4 and phase 5 thing, but it's really played out at this point. Now, this section of the video, I actually want to talk about like what I think Marvel can learn from The Incredibles and stuff, similar to The Incredibles. And even, Marvel can learn something from The Boys, because I feel like these are both great examples of shows and movies doing superheroes the right way and not the Marvel way, and which hasn't been working at all for the past couple of years. But one thing that I think that they can learn, which I previously said in the first part of the video, is making stuff seem like that it has weight to it, and make the stakes actually feel high. Because you can tell us that the stakes are high all you want to, but the characters and the portrayal of how they act with each other don't seem like the stakes are really high, then the stakes are gonna be high. Because you can say that throughout the entire movie, but if nothing in the movie conveys that, or none of the characters even seem like they care about what's going on, or they don't have no sense of urgency, then none of that will matter. Because that's kind of been the thing with me in a lot of these Marvel movies, is like there's no sense of urgency in these life-threatening, world-threatening situations. It just kind of seems like it's a slice of life movie featuring superheroes, and it's like I kind of want them to feel like a superhero movie, and I don't mind the jokes here and there, a lot of times they're not funny, but I just wish that sometimes that it would feel like I'm watching a superhero movie and not a slice of life movie featuring superheroes. And one other thing that I feel like Marvel can learn from, especially from The Boys. Now, I know that The Boys are, is a TV show and not a movie. But one thing that I do feel like helps a show like The Boys, comparing it to Marvel movies, is that The Boys have seasons, and that there will be a long time before you will see another Boys episode after the season. Like, it's not like they made the entire series, and as soon as season 1 is over with, you get season 2, then you get season 3, unless you binge watch it after it's all been done. And the thing with some of these Marvel movies is that they keep releasing them back to back, and it just needs to be like a break in between, so that people can kind of get a break from these superhero movies. Because if you keep releasing them back to back to back, people don't really get a break, and we're not really able to fully enjoy the movie like we would have if Marvel would release 1 to 2 movies every 3-4 years, instead of releasing a movie every 1 or 2 years. And especially after Endgame, where Marvel was releasing movies back to back to back, I really feel like they could have benefited from taking 5 years off with no superhero movies. 5 years with no superhero movies, I feel like would have been great for Marvel, because it would have made people excited to get more superhero movies after the 5-year break was up. Because I feel like if they would have took 5-year breaks in between each phase, then I feel like that would drive up the excitement for Marvel movies even more. Because even if you're somebody that's all the Marvel movies of the past 5 years, too much of a good thing is not great. And I feel like that if they would spread these movies out, I feel like people would be able to appreciate them more, and I feel like they will have more and more time to work on them to make the movies better. But if we're constantly getting movies and new phases are being made, and I don't mind you planning out your movies years in ahead, but it's also keep releasing more and more movies, and we're never really left to have time to truly appreciate these movies. Because a Marvel movie will get released, and then a couple months later you'll see trailers for another one coming out in June, and then a couple months later you'll see a trailer for another one coming out in December or November, and you'll have 2 to 3 Marvel movies in a year that all tie into the lore, that all are part of the multiverse, and it's we need time to rest so that we can fully appreciate these movies. But back to what I think that they could learn from The Incredibles. The Incredibles did a really good job of humanizing their characters, even though they were superheroes. They gave their characters human qualities, human characteristics, so that it didn't, all feel fantasy. So they didn't, all feel like, we were in this, made up land, like we're on, Earth 1566 or some shit. And yeah, I get it, you can, come up with the argument of, oh, the superheroes are not supposed to be realistic. I'm not asking for the superheroes themselves to be realistic. I'm asking for the characters of the superheroes to be realistic. I want, Tony Stark to be a realistic person. I want Peter Parker to seem like, a realistic person with a realistic personality, and not these, over exaggerated anime type characters for superheroes, because then it's I can't relate to nothing that's going on in this movie, and it's not really good to me. And because of that, I don't enjoy it as much as I would if they were more of a realistic telling of a person. all of that aside, I really do feel like these are things that Marvel could like start reapplying to their movies, and I really feel like you would see like a significant change in how Marvel, heroes and villains act, because I feel like Marvel always, like nails the villains for the most part, but the heroes, which are the main part of every, Marvel superhero story, that's where I feel like they've kind of been lacking. And I really feel like if they could kind of like, take some of these things and apply it to and reapply it to their movies, I feel like we could see like a significant boost in quality. But that's just my opinion. I do have, more Marvel opinions on my channel, and you can go check them out. And I'm out. Peace.